Ladies and gentlemen, your boy's Easy Huncho is in the building. This is from the logo episode, whatever. We got a guest in the building, and we got my boy Gifted. Gifted, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, and then I will introduce our guests.
What's good, y'all? We back. Happy holidays. Thanksgiving is soon approaching. Hope hoops have been enjoyable for everyone. Can't wait to get to today's episode, man. I know what time it is.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering who that man is on the top right, that is Hoopology. If you have TikTok and you are on the NBA side of TikTok, then you know who this man is. Hoopology, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people for me.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Me and Z go way back. I'm happy to guest. So appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes, sir. Now, for those who don't know, Hoopology is a New York Knicks fan, so we will be getting into the travesty that occurred last night between them and the Denver.
Oh, that was nasty.
Good Lord. But to start, Gifted, I figured let's just talk about tonight's upcoming games, especially the one that is the first slated game of the evening, at least National Cup games, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. For those who don't know, the Milwaukee Bucks rather have had a pretty solid stretch of games within at least the last 5. When you look at them, they're currently on a 4-game win streak. Good Lord. 8-9, and they went all the way from the bottom of the Eastern Conference to the 6th seed. Miami is on a 2-game win streak, 5-5 in their last 10, and currently sit as the 5th seed. So we're gonna get started with Gifted. Let me know what your thoughts are on this game. How important is this game for who?
Honestly, very big game. I want to say this to me is the real diamond tester win for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they've been playing better basketball as of late for sure. Ever since they included Ajax into their starting 5, they've been playing better basketball. But I think a team like Miami is a great test because Miami has also had a very rough start to the season, but Butler has scored 30 points in his last 2 games, and they are looking better. So this is a real test between, okay, these two teams are going to be in the same overall conference. Both teams have had a rough start. What's real, what's not? I think this game will be a good blend of those two. So going to be interesting to watch. I think this is probably a more important game for Miami, actually. And I say that because I think the Bucks have at least gone on some type of win streak. If they lose to the Heat, I don't think people are going to be as heartbroken over it. Jimmy Butler's playing his best basketball of the season in this very, very small stretch. So this is a test of, can Jimmy and Bam really figure things out, and can the Heat continue to carve out their own path right now? So I'm really focused on the Heat and how they look.
Word. Hoop, how you feeling?
I'd say in terms of the game is more important for, I'd probably say Milwaukee. I think a lot of people combined them and Philly with their rough starts to start the year.
Yeah, they did.
And now there's a game away from breaking 500, which is not only a testament to Giannis, but also obviously, everyone's been dogging on Darvin Ham and Doc Rivers. But this is a team that has very high aspirations, and aging Damian Lillard, just an older team in general who have been surfacing a lot of doubts. Miami is never an easy win, but for them to break 500, especially in this Eastern Conference, which is very lopsided right now, I think it is important for them to squeak this one out, personally.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. For me, looking at Milwaukee all year, and I've watched them throughout this little run that they've put together, and like Hoop said, it's a testament to Giannis, to where they are right now, from starting off like 1-8. And looking at the team, you were wondering like how many times you were going to see Giannis drop 45 and lose. They're winning. The one thing I will say about this win streak is they're winning the games that they're supposed to win against the teams that they're supposed to beat. Like, the one thing about this Bucks team that you saw early on was that they were losing games that they just flat out shouldn't have been losing. And then you take teams like Brooklyn, for example. I remember at one point, people were saying, well, how are you stuck in a game with the Brooklyn Nets? And then so far through 10 games, you look at the Nets and you're like, they're not that bad. They're not the Pistons of last year. They're not even the Hornets of last year. They're not even the Nets of last year. They're a good team. They can hang in there. You just don't want to let the game slip. And if you do let it slip, that tells you what you need to do to fix for your team. The Milwaukee Bucks are in that discussion. When you look at them overall, they're pretty mid when it comes to offense, when it comes to defense, when it comes to things like point differential. There's not one area of their game offensively that I can say they really stick to well. Like besides, because when you look at them, they're not a bad 3-point shooting team. They're fringe top 10. When you think about effective field goal percentage and things of that matter, they're top 7, top 6. So there's certain areas of their game where you're wondering why is it not resulting to wins consistently. Hopefully, Chris Middleton, they still don't know what's happening with him. So they're in a situation right now where you got to figure it out with Dame and Giannis and Torrey and Prince. So if they can win games that they're supposed to win, then great, do your thing. It's going to be great for Chris Middleton when he gets back. But we talked about this last week, bro. Like we still don't have that much stock in this Milwaukee Bucks team, no matter if they, hold out and become the 5th seed or not. Now Miami, they're a different story for me because when I look at them, I'm like, they're the team in the Eastern Conference, the one team that you can't count out besides Boston. I feel like a lot now to Hoop's point about people trying to put the Bucks and Philly in the same conversation. I think people were trying to do the same thing with Philly and Miami, and I've felt that way for the last 5 years. People have tried to say, well, when the season starts off, well, it's Boston, and then it's got to be the Sixers in that top 3, or it's got to be the Knicks even in some of those seasons. But Miami, really the 2021 season, just because they had made the finals, was when people put stock in them. And then 2023, of course, they were the 8th seed and still made it to the finals. So for me, all of those years I've looked at Miami, it's like if they're healthy and they're firing on all cylinders and heat culture and the power of friendship is at full force, they're a team that you can't count out. If Jimmy's getting rolling,
If I could add in, I feel like you're talking about teams that people say you can't count out and people trying to throw Philly in that conversation. I feel like they're direct opposites when it comes to what needs to happen for them to have playoff success. With Philly, everything needs to fire on all cylinders. You need a healthy Joel Embiid. Nothing going on with him. You need a secondary piece. You need everyone to be healthy. You need the role players shooting well. With Miami, you just throw the guys out there and they play hard. Ultimately, that's what they've shown. They don't exactly need everything. I believe, wasn't Hero out for a significant stretch of the 2023 run?
Yes, yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
I think they're direct opposites there, where Miami, you just put them in the playoffs and something can happen. Whereas Philly, you need literally everything to go right, which, I mean, I don't want to get into that whole situation, but the process is pretty much toast.
They're in a weird spot right now because, again, I mean, right now Embiid is basically like going through his injury management. So he's going to still miss games. Right now, Paul George is still out as well. And they just keep losing games. Like the hole gets bigger and bigger for them. The only saving grace is that they're in the Eastern Conference. So there's going to be room for them to grow and get back into things. But January, they have the hardest schedule and they have the most back-to-backs of any team. So they have to start winning really now because, as we know, Embiid is going to miss a lot of time in those back-to-backs in January. So they need quick results now, or the season might be cooked for them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where they sit right now, but it's at least 10 games to get back to 500.
Pretty much.
Yeah, where they're at right now, they're
10 games to get to 500, 3-13. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tough. I mean, damn, that is wild. But moving away from the Eastern Conference, let's move on to the second header tonight for the NBA Cup, and that is the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix is getting Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal back into the mix for the first time in a while. And when you look at where they were at the start of the season with Kevin Durant, if I'm not mistaken, they started off 8-1, right? Something like that with KD. And then without KD, they started to plummet, and now they're the 7th seed. They're 9-7. So that's nice. And they're also on a 5-game winning streak. Good Lord, well, how did I miss that? Damn, that is bad. They are on a 5-game losing streak right now. Wow.
Phoenix,
so
you mean?
Phoenix in LA. Phoenix is
yeah.
So LA, of course, they're on a 2-game losing skid, including the one to the Nuggets, which I guess we'll get into in a second. But LA and Phoenix, who needs to win more? Gifted. I'll start with you this time.
I mean, you mentioned the 5-game losing skid without KD. I'd probably say Phoenix then. You need to have an identity outside of, obviously KD is the you could say the engine that makes that team run, but he's aging. Ultimately, your team needs to operate outside of him. I was also going to say back to Milwaukee, that team needs to operate outside of Chris Middleton. That he cannot be the piece that makes the team run. You need to be able to operate without him, especially since KD is not necessarily a heliocentric player. He complements any offense. Obviously, you still have talent out there aside from him. You need to form an identity that is not Kevin Durant. So I think they need to win more.
I'm going to go with the Lakers here, and the reason why I'll say them is, at least with Phoenix, they haven't had their best player, so there's a understanding as to why they haven't really looked the same. Adding Kevin Durant and Beal back in for their first game, if they wind up losing that's fine. I think they can understand why, right? The Lakers are in a much worse position in terms of they have been healthy for the most part, and they've been really underperforming. I mean, they just got blitzed to pieces by the Denver Nuggets a couple of days ago, right? So I think for them, they need to get a get-right game where their best player looks like their best player. And while they're playing a team that has not had a sense of continuity tonight, as their two best players are getting reacclimated, right? So to me, this is a very important win for LA in terms of boosting their confidence against teams that are generally pretty good teams.
They're confirmed to play tonight, KD and Beal?
Yeah, KD was confirmed. I'm not sure if Beal was, but okay. I know for a fact that their best player will be playing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know.
He's got to be careful coming off that calf strain.
He does, yeah. So it's like
definitely
for Phoenix. When I look at Phoenix, I look at both these teams in two different ways, because Phoenix, like, people can't forget, they were a 49-win team last year. So that was despite not having Beal, D-Book, and KD in the lineup all at the same time for the majority of the season. They still were able to win a lot of games. The only reason why their luck ran out in the first round, because they couldn't get a win, is because they matched up against the high-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves team in the West last year. Was literally the Wild Wild West. So for me, I don't have a lot of stock in however many regular season games they can pull together, because at the end of the day, our focal point last year was who is the true point guard, and Tyus Jones has been great for them in his role. How sustainable is Mike Budenholzer going to be with that come postseason time? That's my question. So still, you still have to wait and see. It's a long season, of course, but Kevin Durant, like Hoop said, you have to be monitoring that, because we already been through this once with KD 5 years ago when it came to monitoring a calf strain of some sort or a lower leg injury. So I do look at the Lakers, and I think, to what Gifted said, they gave up a 50-17 run to the team that has been sunning them the most in the last recent years, right? When I look at, I saw a stat, it was since January 1st of 2023, the Nuggets or Jokic is 13-1 against LeBron. That's insane. That is literally LeBronto, but in the Western Conference in a different alternate universe. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So for me, if I'm looking at the Lakers and JJ Redick, of course, I love JJ Redick. Don't know about y'all, but I love JJ Redick. I love how serious players take him as a coach in only his first year. I saw a video of Dalton Connect asking JJ to walk him through his pregame ritual so that he can, or his pregame shoot-around routine. And seeing that, I'm like, this is exactly what I knew the Lakers were going to do when they drafted the kid. They said they need to give JJ a sniper. Let him go ahead, do whatever. Let's make a Disney movie out of this. Like, this is insane. So for me, looking at the Lakers, they have a lot that they want to get off their chest after that embarrassing performance against the one team that is their ceiling. Like, I don't care what the Lakers do in the offseason. I don't care if D'Lo gets traded or not. I don't care if if D'Angelo Russell gets more minutes or not. Like, the one thing that this team, their objective is to get past the Nuggets. It's not even the championship. It's not even the thought of getting to the finals. It is getting past this one team. That's their objective. The Philadelphia 76ers are in a similar boat because they have one objective. It is not to win a championship. It is not to make the finals. It is to make it to the conference finals. There's certain teams in the league that just have ceilings that they need to reach, The Lakers are in that boat when it comes to the Denver Nuggets. So it just seems like anytime they match up, like Gift said earlier, pulling out the diamond tester. That's what it is with the Nuggets. Like that's the Lakers. They're the diamond tester. That's their situation. So they're looking to have a bounce back and to stay strong because, mind you, the Lakers have been consistently at the top of the Western Conference despite recent struggles. So they're going to be looking to turn things around very, very quickly. And they have the personnel. You got to remember, they have potentially an MVP candidate, Anthony Davis. Also, a potential defensive player of the year candidate, a potential rookie of the year candidate in Dalton Knecht. So the team, and they have LeBron James. So the team as a whole, like they have their identity, what Hoop was mentioning earlier. Like they have their identity. They can lock in defensively. They can lock in and fourth quarter scoring. They're one of the top 3 teams in the league. So they can lock in certain moments. But their biggest identity tester has been the Nuggets. So for me, I think it's the Lakers. They're gonna go crazy tonight. I can see that.
Yeah, man. This is a very important game for them because, I mean, their whole goal is to establish their identity and show that they can beat good teams. I think they had a very good start to the season. Then they kind of came back down to earth. Then they started up good again, and then they got blitzed by all the points against Denver. So this is a good reset game for them against the team that projects to be a top 7 seed in the Western Conference as well in the Phoenix Suns. So that's why I feel like for them, establishing your position as a team that has been more put together for the past 5 or 6 games compared to the Suns who missed 2 of their key players matters a lot tonight.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. Hoop, any last thoughts on that one?
No, I agree with the points of, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the other stuff going around social media, people talking about trading D'Lo and whatnot. I don't know if they're trying to, do you guys have any indication that they're trying to raise his stock and trade him off at the deadline, or is this something they can play through?
They need to. I mean, I haven't heard D'Lo trade talks for like the last 2 years and a half. So at this point, it's like they basically just pump faking a player at this point and his future. For me, looking at D'Angelo Russell and the question that I had at one point in the season was before he got benched was should he come off the bench? Because I've said it on numerous occasions. For as great as LeBron James is, he is literally arguably the greatest ever. For as great of a player as LeBron is, not everybody can play with him, right? We just talked about how Kevin Durant, you could pretty much implement him into any offensive scheme based off of his play style. That is correct. Kevin Durant is one of the most versatile players ever that the game has ever seen because of his play style and his selflessness or what have you. And the ability, when you looked at his Warriors years, for him to be effective without having the ball in his hand. LeBron is ball dominant, of course. We know that. So you look at a player like D'Angelo Russell or a player like Russell Westbrook and you ask them to be great next to LeBron, they're changing their roles. Russell Westbrook, they put him in a corner. D'Angelo Russell, they try to turn him into a catch-and-shoot player. And honestly, when you look at it, that's not their play styles. That's just it's not. No shade against LeBron, no shade against my LeBrizas, but damn it, like D'Angelo Russell doesn't fit in with this team, or he can't really be as effective as he would be in Minnesota or in Golden State or in Brooklyn, like where the pressure for what he needs to bring to the offense isn't there. So him coming off the bench, he got better, of course. Remember when Russ came off the bench, he got better, of course. Like there's certain players that can come off the bench and be more effective, and that might be the best option for you. But to be honest with you, I think they need to just be done with D'Lo. His LA chapter in his book is closed and should be. So
yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
So we'll see. Other games that are slated for tonight: the Houston Rockets versus the Timberwolves. Timberwolves are 8-8. Let me just throw this out. Hoop, you're a Knicks fan. Chat, get it on this too. KB, what's up? You're a Knicks fan. Who won the trade? The Knicks or the Timberwolves?
We gotta let it play out. I saw
so far.
I gotta explain something to you.
Okay.
Karl Anthony Towns has been a historically good offensive center currently. Mm-hmm. My initial reaction was just confusion to the trade. I think Karl Anthony Towns, the way you optimize him most is to have him at the 5, but with that, your defensive ceiling is naturally lowered. I could get into some defensive stats from his time in Minnesota, like just how his teams have ranked defensively. The one notable team that was in the playoffs was with Jimmy, Wiggins, Teague, Taj Gibson, I think, at the 4. That team was
and Derrick Rose. Don't you dare forget Derrick Rose.
That team was like 25th in defensive rating. So in order for the Knicks to win the trade, they need to be able to compete in the playoffs, because you look at last year, I understand Hartenstein's out of the equation, so that's something difficult to factor because they weren't going to be able to pay him anyway. But with Randall, Anunoby, DiVincenzo, and Brunson on the court, that team was very, very good in January. I think it might have been 11-1 through that stretch. Randall obviously went down. Anunoby had shoulder issues. Anunoby was the elbow. Randall got his shoulder dislocated. So we never got to see that team. But I thought that identity was, aside from Jalen Brunson being incredible, was the physical size and the offensive rebounding. And just the fact that Hartenstein's plays bigger than everyone. Randall plays like a bully. Hart gets rebounds. DiVincenzo plays bigger. Brunson, they're all big guys for their position. So now when you bring in Cat for the 5 spot, your defense takes a big hit. I know the one stat, it's tough to truly track the defensive field goal percentage. I think it was Basketball Forever said he was letting 90% of his shots in the rim.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know how truthful that is, but ultimately, obviously, he's not an incredible rim protector at all. But if Mitch comes back and you put Cat at the 4, you're not getting that same offense. And that's what we saw with Rudy. It's the same trend you could see in Minnesota, where he is incredible offensively at the 5, but your team has a ceiling. And defensively, you need to be incredible to be able to stop teams like, specifically, we're eyeing Boston. And I thought, personally, the Knicks needed to stick to that size to be able to compete with them. They out-rebounded us, like Al Horford and Porzingis, our first matchup. But as far as who won the trade, Minnesota doesn't seem to be going anywhere either. I saw a play the other night where Rudy was camped out in the paint and Julius did not give him the ball. And Ant shoot out Rudy, of all people. Obviously, Rudy can't exploit any mismatch. But as of now, obviously, it's the Knicks. But I think they need to figure some stuff out, how this is going to work. I think you need to play Cat at the 5 and play like they did last night, hustling around on defense. I don't like the idea of Cat and Mitch starting and closing games personally, but those are my opinions.
Gifted.
Well, this is a trade that we're only going to know who the real winner of it is deeper after finding out what the pick turns into and seeing what the Wolves do with the flexibility of not being under Karl-Anthony Towns' Supermax contract. I kept saying the reason why he was traded was less to do with his skill and more so the money and the restraints of the new CBA. I always felt like Karl-Anthony Towns is a good basketball player. I think he has his flaws. I think that showed on this team from time to time, but I still didn't feel like they needed to pull the trigger at least this quickly. I figured they would at least give it one more season, considering how far they made it last year to be within a few games of the NBA Finals, but they don't. They trade him, and Cat is having, a career year. I mean, almost every game he's scoring a efficient 30 points per game right now. It's been kind of insane, like how elite he's been. You can make an argument he's been their best player this season so far.
Yeah,
right.
Could.
It's hard defensively to monitor the negative of him out there, but absolutely he's been their best offensive player, 1,000%.
Yeah,
also, DiVincenzo's been struggling mightily.
Yeah, he hasn't been good this year.
Yes, he has. And that's been weird for me. But you know what I think it is like I've heard rumors of him being upset with just coming off the bench and his role there being a little bit differently. But even still, like the minutes that he got come postseason time last year, didn't he get those minutes because of the injuries to everybody else, or because his minutes just went up a little bit more? He was
he started once Grimes got
okay.
Gotcha. He was incredible. Obviously,
and
he got a lot of exposure. That February he averaged like 24 a night.
I remember him going crazy.
But he was incredible.
To my point, like he's in a different role. He's in a more limited role. He doesn't have as many offensive freedoms as he might have had in that Knicks system. So like Hoop said, it's going to be something that they're going to need time to figure out and to be able to really get the ball rolling. I told both of y'all before the season even started, like right after the trade, I was interested to see the dynamic of if Julius Randle was going to be able to pick up the pieces offensively of what Cat was to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not necessarily saying that from three, but just with his ISO scoring ability and playmaking ability outside of, double teams or whatever, driving downhill, how was that going to look in that system? I didn't think that Anthony Edwards was going to be shooting 11 threes a game, but
I was
it
going
is
to say Randall's shot profile has really confined over the last couple of years. And last year for the Knicks, it turned out really well because in 2021, he had free reign. That team had Elfrid Payton as spacing. It was interesting. But after 2023, after that playoff series where the Knicks figured out that high volume Randall 3-point shooting wasn't going to work, he really confined into a very efficient post player.
Right.
Now transferring to Minnesota, it's seeming like he now is stuck in that mold. Not that it doesn't look like this is the mold for that team needs, especially when they're struggling to find like dynamic offense outside of Anthony Edwards. I'm surprised they're not unleashing DiVincenzo more. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm one of the biggest Julius Randle fans you'll find, so I pay close attention.
Okay, yeah. I have to say, I don't think Randle's been bad for the Wolves. I think the Wolves just as a unit don't have the same chemistry as they had last year. Dante has been a very disappointing player for them so far by every category, I would say, for the most part. And he'll probably play better, but he was a big part of this trade to determine if the Wolves could come out as bandits. But a lot of this move was still done for financial flexibility. I think they saw this team. They feel like it made it as far as it could go. So their success isn't really going to be predicated on how far they go this year, but more so about how they're able to retool this team around Anthony Edwards in the next 2, 3, or 4 years.
Yeah.
I was going to mention as well. I think Julius gets his contract is up very soon. Not that they would, if this is not a good fit, they could potentially turn that into another sidekick.
He has a player option. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. All right, so let's transition. We're about 30 minutes into the show, and let's transition slowly into the West Coast. So, as I mentioned before, Hoopology is a Knicks fan, and the Knicks put up 145 points on the Denver Nuggets last night. And after the game, you heard Mike Malone basically say, hey, look, we're not flushing this down the toilet at all. We're going to deal with this. We're going to let this drape over us, and we're going to figure out how to move forward. Jamal Murray, I don't know what the hell Jamal Murray was talking about in his post-game press conference. I don't know if he was talking to himself when he said that people be out in LA and not focused and need to focus up more. If he was talking about teammates, I really don't know. But to be honest with both of y'all, and Hoop, I'm gonna let you go first since you are the Knicks fan, so you can give me your thoughts on it. But I'm not even that worried about the Nuggets, and I'll tell you why after. But this loss that they took does not really concern me as much. But go ahead.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but the Knicks have over the last couple of years, I think, done really well against Denver. Not this well,
of
but
course.
Yeah, it's not something I'm overly concerned about. I think Denver in general doesn't shape up to be a top contender, especially when you're talking about the likes of Boston and OKC. I think they're a tier underneath. But that is interesting that Jamal Murray said that, especially with how he played okay last night, but he hasn't been playing all that well.
Yeah.
So Russ was incredible last night.
He was. Shout out Brody. And the thing is, Gifted, before I let you go, the thing is, when I was looking at the game, it's a matter of like, you have to look at it from a mismatch perspective on who went off and how. OG Anunoby, 40 points. The fact that OG could go out there and drop 40 with Cat also having a smooth 30 and 15. I don't know what the hell is in the water this week and why the hell Jalen Brunson had 17 assists. And the other night, what's his name?
Elfrid Payton
had 21 assists.
Elfrid Payton went crazy. Yeah.
I don't know what's in the water this week, but
they got to expand the league, man.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
He could be on a team.
But yeah, Gifted, go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, no. Great quarter from Westbrook again. 24 points in the fourth quarter. That's very hard to do. But I think the game as a whole, I mean, we saw them get thoroughly outplayed in every facet. OG Anunoby had 40 points. Jalen Brunson had 17 assists. Karl-Anthony Towns had another 30 and 15 game. I think Cat only missed 3 shots on the night. Like, they just look, like a much better team. And it's funny because I said this about the Knicks. I felt like the Knicks would be like a 5 seed, mainly because it would take time to find their balance between chemistry, continuity, and health. I feel like this team is more equipped as a playoff team than a team to get through the full 82 game season. And they're coming in the form a lot faster than I thought they would.
Yep. I'd agree. Don't tell Santa Cruz. You also got to factor in Aaron Gordon.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true.
And so for me, like, the reason why I said I'm not worried is because I don't have high expectations for this Nuggets team. I love Russell Westbrook. Hope that he can keep up his play, but you're not getting 27 off the bench from Russell Westbrook every night. That's not happening. You're not getting a consistent, cohesive bench unit as well. And on top of that, if you're not going to get that, and you're not going to get a consistent Jamal Murray, then what do you really have at the end of the day? A consistent Nikola Jokic that can very well average a 30-point triple-double. And as we see with Giannis, sometimes for no reason he can go out there and they end up losing. But for me, I think that this team is a lot thinner than they were when they won a championship 2 years ago. And I don't think that is something that they really, unfortunately, can't change. Like, based off of the CBA, based off of injuries to Aaron Gordon, based off of whatever the hell's going on with Jamal Murray. Like, they're essentially stuck in this. Like, that's what it is. So they're going to have to get it out of the mud and grind out, the rest of the season. But, I mean, yeah, it's a loss like that. It's going to happen. I mean, they were due for it. Lakers fans were probably thanking the basketball gods for that, to being able to witness that. But like I said, I don't have high expectations for this team. I really don't know where I see them, come April. But like I said, I'm not hitting the panic button because there's really so much that they can do until Jamal Murray starts acting like an all-star and not like Austin Reeves. Like I don't know. His production is very weird and doesn't match up, especially when you consider how we raved about this duo over the last couple of years in their 2-man action. And the fact that it's just not hitting the same. He shot 6 of 13 last night, which, like Hoop said, wasn't bad, but 1 of 5 from 3 isn't going to cut it. And then when you look at the fact that they put 145 points on your head, you have to ask yourself, is 13 shots really going to cut it? What is going on with Jamal Murray? Like that's what I'm thinking.
I also think just in terms of you're saying how they're going to shape up for the playoffs, you know what you're getting from most of the roster. It's going to come from the guys who, KCP was a big loss. What is Christian Brown going to do? What is Julius Randle going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'd say the same thing about the Knicks as well. They need to explore and really give, obviously, Tibbs is on another level of not giving his bench guys minutes, but really explore what they have on the bench and give them opportunity. And I think that's the way you find something, because it's not going to come from what you currently have. You know exactly what you're getting inconsistently with Jamal Murray and PJ. That will not change. They are who they are, sadly. But it's going to have to come from the other guys.
Yeah, for them, a lot of their season is making it to the playoffs and just finding out more about their team. I kept saying Dario Saric seemed like a good player, but he can't play with Jokic, and his defense is so bad. It's going to hurt a lot of lineups that he's in. Jokic having to really floor raise this entire roster all throughout the regular season is one thing, but also Jamal Murray not looking at as effective as he's been in the past kind of limits the ceiling of what this team could do. But
exactly,
we'll see what they do. I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. I do believe that, but how far they go is fully dependent on if their high-end players can really achieve their ceilings.
Yeah. Well, now that we're 35 minutes into the show and we're at peak viewership, let's get into the main topic. The Golden State Warriors, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't been watching basketball this year, the Warriors are pretty solid as a basketball team. They've had bumps in the road in the last few games, and that's something that me and Gifted are definitely going to get into and figure out just what the hell is wrong with Steve Kerr. But still, they're 12-5. All right, second seed in the Western Conference, in the almighty Western Conference. And last night they took a bad loss to the Brooklyn Nets. Now let me tell y'all my perspective on this, right? So I'm going to sleep, and I have the game on my computer, and I'm just watching. And it's like the end of the third quarter. I think the score was like 86-68. And the Warriors go on this 11-0 run, and Steph hits a 4-point play, and it's high vibes, and everybody's dancing and shit. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, great. Warriors run, fourth quarter. If I do doze off, I hope I don't. I did. Then I'll wake up to a W. So I wake up this morning and I see that we lost by 8. And I remember falling asleep at the moment of thinking to myself, damn, when is Steve Kerr going to put Steph in? Because I had seen, because mind you, they went on an 11-0 run to go up 18. The Nets responded with an 11-0 run. So for 9 minutes, Steph Curry didn't touch the floor from like the 4:48 mark in the third to the like 9:50 mark in the fourth quarter, something like that. But I'm sitting here wondering, Gifted, because you might have watched the whole game. You might have actually watched the entire fourth. I watched up until the third quarter. But for my understanding, my thought process was, and seeing the reactions on social media, people are flaming Steve Kerr. And the thing is, Steve Kerr said, you know what, Steph is basically, he's older, so he doesn't want to have him going out there and going on Steph runs, which I understand. There's a lot of games in the season, this 82-game season. I get that. But in situations where it is clear that the momentum that you once had in the palm of your hands has been snatched out of your hand, you have to go to Steph Curry at that point. Because I don't know about you, but I saw Buddy Hield throwing up brick after brick after brick. So if I'm Steve Kerr and my second best three-point shooter isn't hitting, what is my next option going to be? Probably not putting in Moses Moody, who had an incredible first half, but it is what it is. Let me get your thoughts, Gifted. Go ahead.
I watched this whole game. This was a complete meltdown from the Golden State Warriors. I do want to say shout out to Brooklyn Nets because so far they've been a pretty good team throughout the season. A lot of people had them being the worst team in the league. And it's still possible for them to become that after they trade their entire team. But in terms of how they played last night, the real keys to the game, Golden State went up almost as much as like 18 points. They sat Steph Curry. They sat a couple of their starters. Moses Moody, after having 15 points in a quarter, pretty much gets 4 minutes for the rest of the game. And then Brooklyn just blows the game open. And they just, keep scoring. Then by the time Steph checks back in the game, there's like 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But he was taken out of the game, I believe, when it was like 3 minutes left in the third. So like that long stretch of play where he wasn't there, they come back, and then they just start making insanely difficult shots. Dennis Schroeder had a phenomenal game, 31 points. He played very, very well. And then the Warriors lose another game that was 100% winnable. This is also the same game where Cam Thomas is sitting on the bench because of a injury thing, so he doesn't really check back into the game. And the Nets are still able to close out Golden State. In my opinion, good teams that are really trying to win and contend for a championship. Bad losses happen, but they're really starting to regress from what they've shown us from the beginning of the season to now. And that was a game they needed to win because losing against the Spurs and also the Nets, like those are teams that you have to kind of get those wins, especially in such a tough Western Conference, especially when the hard stretch for the Warriors is approaching. And your next two games are against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Suns. So it's going to be tough.
Hoop, what you got?
I did watch pretty much the whole fourth after the Knicks game was just done for. And there was no Cam Thomas during that stretch. There was no Nick Claxton. There was no Ben Simmons. From the bulk of the clutch minutes were from Schroeder, Zaire Williams, Trendon Watford, and I think it was Jalen Wilson. And what I thought I saw, maybe you can confirm, but was just the the size, I thought, where the Nets really got a lot of paint touches and really exploited the size and how small the Warriors were. Whereas the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins got to the rim a little bit, but I mean, just Steph alone took 17 shots, 16 were from three. Shot 8 for 16, so that's a good thing. But I thought, and I feel like this is just a trend I've seen from when the Warriors stall out. Not that the Brooklyn Nets are a defensive juggernaut, but when things tend to go, it's tough to create open shots out of their like sets. They don't have a ton of dynamic talent to be able to get a paint touch and create something out of nothing. Steph obviously can do that. But I feel like I've seen a lot of Steph being doubled and then them swinging around for the cleanest three they can get. And the Nets were just all over that, and they were making their shots on the other end. And I think when you're trying to compete against these other teams that are also very 3-point reliant in Boston and these other teams trying to mimic that, I feel like you need something that just makes you different. Obviously, Steph Curry is different, but in terms of their size isn't helping them at all. They're a very small team. I think a lot of the lineups I saw were 3-guard. But ultimately, even with the Nets and how inexperienced of an NBA roster they have, obviously they're guys who are in the NBA, and their size just, I thought, really showed through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, when I was looking at the game, because I remember watching clearly the third quarter, and seeing that when the Warriors are firing on all cylinders, all is well. They have a tendency of going away from what works throughout the majority of the game. And when you look at Steve Kerr and the reason that he's under fire, because I saw a comment, somebody was like, well, when the Warriors do well, nobody gives them credit. But when they lose, everybody tells us he's overrated. That's not the case for me. It's the simple things. Like if for Gifted, for example, Gifted saying Moses Moody had that 17-point quarter, right? He goes off, he has 3 threes, right, in a very short amount of time. For him to get under 5 minutes for the rest of the second half does not make any sense whatsoever. There's no way you can justify that. That is just blatantly stupid. Like Steph Curry playing under 25 minutes, blatantly stupid. I get that you have a 12-man rotation. I get that. And I've said it before. They're the deepest team in basketball. Even with the Anthony Melton going down for the season, they still have a very deep rotation. That's great. You don't have to do that every single night where you're playing somebody. You're making sure that guys are getting just under 30 minutes. That's stupid, especially when you're talking about game management. That's something that's been very questionable and suspect about Steve Kerr in the last 3 years, is his late game management. The Warriors were getting by in a lot of situations last year. That's why Steph won Clutch Player of the Year. But when you really look back at those games last year, it's like certain situations like poor third quarter starts and poor opening game starts and things like that are what put them in those situations where you're overly relying on Steph Curry to deliver in the clutch. Whereas you could just be as simple as possible and you can't have a deep rotation. I know coaches that say they have a deep rotation, but they're really just looking at the 8 hottest guys on that particular night, and that's how the game plays out. In the case for last night, there's no excuse to not have Moses Moody on the court in the fourth quarter. There's also no excuse to have Steph Curry not on the court when you clearly see Buddy Hield is struggling, and that is your best 3-point shooter on the court, not being able to get the ball into the rim or whatever. You as a head coach should be like, okay, Steph, it's your time. Get us back into the fray. Get our heads above the water, right? Something like that. That like you, and to Steve Kerr's credit, you don't have to bring him in for the entire run and just to have him in there from the 7-minute mark to the end of the game. No, but you can bring him back in to rear everybody's heads onto one level so that they can just go forward. Like that's all you really need to do. So I have an issue with me and Gifted coming up with these ideas after the fact, where we're watching the game and we've seen it and we're like, if we had just done this, and 9 times out of 10, we both are thinking the same thing about what exactly went wrong or what could have went differently. You know what I'm saying? Or what we really didn't do that was a boneheaded decision. So for me, like Gifted said, them dropping 2 games back to back to the Victor Wembanyama less San Antonio Spurs, and then the Brooklyn Nets that didn't have Cam Thomas in for the entire time, Ben Simmons, like you said.
Now they had Victor.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
In that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did Victor? Did he do anything in that game?
Yeah.
He shot like 4 threes in the first 2 minutes. That's what I saw.
He was closing us out in the fourth quarter.
It was okay. I got my games mixed up. But yeah, the point of the matter is, like Giffen said, you needed to win these games at the end of the day, and they lost it in the second half. The Warriors are the best third quarter team statistically still in the league, if you want to go by points per game, if I'm not mistaken. But the way that they put themselves in situations to close is just as important as closing the damn game. Like the situations that you put yourself in or you put your team in as a coach, where it's like you see a struggling player and you say, like, the fact that we've talked about, what was the dude's name? Corey Joseph. Like watching young players that me and Gifted are like, yeah, this dude can actually help us, but you're putting in Corey Joseph off of just veterans. Like you need a veteran on the court. We have Draymond Green, all right? Like maybe a bad role model example, but damn it, we got a veteran. He's fine. We'll take Draymond. I'll take Draymond 100 times over the week, 100 times of the time over Corey Joseph any day of the week. But Steve Kerr putting in stupid rotations or not sticking to rotations that work based off of the way that the game is going is a problem that they need to fix, or maybe he needs to fix. Terry Stotts and what was it, Jerry Stackhouse can do so much, only do so much. So we'll see. But yeah, I hate Steve Kerr's just blatant stupidity sometimes.
Well, especially when you have, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a big draw to why a team wants star power is to be able to rely on them in clutch situations. And I don't just mean clutch in the last couple minutes of the game. I think you can extend the term clutch to stop a run or get a bucket when you need a bucket. So when you only have, in terms of bona fide star power, Steph Curry out on the court, you need to be able to play the hot hand to be able to stop a run. So I think it's that much more important because
it is.
They don't have someone that's like, hey, Andrew Wiggins, get us a bucket. How reliant is that?
Yeah. And then to your point, Hoop, last night watching the Steph Curry-less minutes when he first checked out in the third, at the end of the third, it was Buddy Hield that they were trying to go shot for shot with. But
you got to stop the bleeding somehow.
Yeah. Buddy was struggling, and the thing is, Gifted, I don't know if you saw it, Buddy was rushing a lot of his shots because it just felt like he was not in rhythm. Like it felt like he was shooting a little bit too early, or he could have taken two more steps in or something like that. One of his shots hit off the side of the backboard. I was like, damn. But the point, to Hoop's point, you're trying to match the hot hand, and if that one isn't working, pull him out. Like there's only one thing you could possibly do. You just sit there and watch him miss. What Draymond Green knocked out Jordan Poole for dumb shit like that. Like we already saw that play out. You don't need to do that again. But we'll see. I think that they'll be fine. They know what they need to do going forward and just how precious that they need. Because their biggest issue, to have your biggest issue be, or at least recently being, keeping a lead. Like the thought of you being able to get the lead is out of the question. It's just about sustaining that. So all of the mental and minuscule errors that pop up with turnovers and runs going the other way, like that's stuff that it's easier said than done, but you can clean that up a lot easier, knowing that that's really the basis or the genesis of what the issue is. So hopefully they do that, but we'll see. Anything else y'all want to add?
For me, I mean, I've criticized this team a lot, and I've had a lot of Warriors fans push back, like, "Oh, look, we're number 1 seed." I'm like, it's a very long season. There's a lot of things about this team that make me uneasy in terms of can they actually contend, and I think that lack of having another creator on the team is hurting them. When you don't have another guy that can actually create their own shot consistently and help create offense for the team when Steph's not on the floor, you're going to struggle. And we've seen that in every loss Golden State's had this year. And I think as long as they don't fix that issue, that's going to be a core problem that plagues them from being a very good team that can actually win a title this season. That matters, and they haven't had it all year long.
The one thing I will say to that point, Gifted, because he's right on everything he just said there. The one thing that I always give the Warriors like benefit of the doubt is when they're hot and they do go on these runs, Like they have that ability to really take over a game. But at the same time, on the flip side of that, they also have shown vulnerability in the last few years where they can have the ability to have the game taken away from them. So to Gifted's point, yeah, like you have to the fact that you are limited on shot creators in general, like you're banking on Andrew Wiggins to give you 27, or you're banking on Jonathan Kuminga to give you 21. But the ability for those players to create their shots or attack downhill or what have you, you're banking on that. To Hoop's point earlier, when you watched the game last night, I did see a lot of them swinging the ball to try and get the best look that they could from the perimeter. But even the commentators were saying like the Warriors were getting their best offense from inside, and they went away from that to try and play the threes game, which is great, when you're hitting, and that's what's been working all game. But to go away from getting to the free throw line is another thing that I think they should take into consideration. Like,
bro, they've been so bad at these open free throws, man.
They have been. They've been terrible. Besides Steph, but they've been terrible. They've been dog water. And the thing that I think too is you got to work on that in practice. If we're 4 weeks into the season and we're let's say we play for the Shanghai Sharks and we're 3 weeks into the season, right? And you mean to tell me we're shooting 68% from the free throw line? Would we not be working on that in practice? Would that not be how we start practice, how we end practice, an intermediate break in practice? Like, I would be working on that. I don't understand. But yeah, that's insane. They need to work on that. They really do. And the one thing that pissed me off is that every time Andrew Wiggins goes to the line, I know one of them is probably gonna miss. And then and then two end up missing, and I'm even more pissed off. But whatever. Yeah, so when I look at this team, like I said before, they can fix certain issues. They don't have anything that's glaring. Like people say that they need size. I've been saying that for 2 years, and they still end up top 5 in rebounds by the end of the year. But that's because they just put in effort on the glass. It's different. You don't necessarily need height. It's beneficial in the playoffs, don't get me wrong. But throughout an 82-game season, as long as everybody's giving effort, you can see the Warriors have been just fine running these small ball lineups and crashing in terms of crashing the glass. But to Gifted and Hoop's point, I feel like we're gonna get to a point where, like y'all said, having a second shot creator is going to not even be like a thought. Like it's not even gonna be a debate anymore. Like they're gonna get to a point where Steph is having to do too much on the offense, or guys aren't stepping up the way that they need to, because you can only move the ball so pretty, but so pretty until you got to ask yourself, okay, let's have somebody that can attack downhill when those honest trades start making sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine him being that go-to guy. Last year, they struggled with this because Klay Thompson, coming off of his injuries and having to be the second option is not a recipe for success, and it wasn't, right? And we saw that. Klay having to rely on Klay having to get himself a bucket is not a good recipe for success, and it wasn't. So they will need that. For me, I don't know who that would be. I don't know if that would be Kuminga. I don't know if that would be Andrew Wiggins. For a while there, it looked like it was going to be Buddy Hield. But they need to figure that out ASAP if they want to shake back.
Absolutely. How they rebound from this is going to be something we really have to lock in for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hoop.
I was just going to add, like, I know obviously Steph is older. Like, who, if this stalls out by midseason, is it something you just, like, are you trying to hold on to these young pieces for the future, or is it something you'd be willing to cash in for the last years of Steph?
Man, if Steph want that 5th ring, he want that 5th ring. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, Steph is one of those players where he's not going to hold, like, the organization hostage. He's not like a Kevin Durant or James Harden or Kyrie Irving like type player where it's like they become stubborn and everybody knows they're good and knows that they have they have value, and they're going to use it to their advantage. They have every right to do so. But in Steph's case, he's made it clear they want to win ring number 5. Draymond's made that clear. And to your point, Hoop, if things start stalling out and they start going away from the objective to the point where the goal of winning the championship becomes a lot more bleak, then yeah, I think because Joe Lacob likes to spend money, man. Like they're not they want to win. The organization, the front office, the fans, like they know what those expectations are. The Warriors, like it or not, have championship or bust expectations, levels of expectations based off how the last 10 years is going for them. So, it's something that, some people in the fan base may not want because they do want to hold on to Jonathan Kuminga or Pods or TJD or what have you. But if the goal is to win the championship and what you currently have isn't good enough to fit the mold, pieces got to go. It is what it is. It's business. Sorry.
Business, man.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I think we've covered pretty much everything. We covered both games tonight, the topic video, the Nuggets, the Knicks.
Hype games tonight, too.
Hype games tonight. NBA Cup is hopefully going to save viewership. I really hope so. Any last words from the two of you on anything that you have seen in the media that you want to get off your chest?
What would I say? Hope Carter continues to keep playing ball at this level. I think right now he's an all-star. I think he's also an all-NBA player so far. He's been one of the best performers in the season so far. I want to see Boston win like 20 games straight. I think Porzingis coming back really makes them extremely dangerous, even more than before. So seeing that greatness continue on is going to be good. And I'm watching every Sixers game until January. I have to see how they rebound.
Yeah. So Jared McCain, I love watching Jared McCain play basketball.
He's nice.
That kid is sensational. Bro's literally like the Jeff Hardy of the NBA.
His jumper's so clean too.
It's so clean. It's so you can tell he's a sniper. You can just tell he's a straight sniper. But go ahead. Anything on your mind that you've seen in the last couple of weeks?
I mean, as someone who's not a Boston guy, I hope they don't rattle off 20 straight. But it's interesting to see how the East pans out. I honestly can throw away Philly. Maybe I'll regret those words, but it's just if it's not going to come together through how many years? I mean, I don't know how many more times we're going to give PG. Kawhi also. I'm hoping I did not see the last time he played basketball yet. But I guess if I had to say one more thing, Stephen A. Smith is a fake Knicks fan. Yeah.
Fake Knicks fan, Stephen A. Wow.
We know that.
He's been there.
Knicks fans, for somebody to claim that team, like I know you were not the first and only Knicks fan that has ever said that he was a fake Knicks fan. Like
everyone, yeah.
All of my friends that are Knicks fans, right? Like including Hoop, my boy Layton is a big Knicks fan. They don't claim Stephen A. Both of them don't claim Stephen A.
I hate that he's our banner guy.
Yeah, he's
he
like one guy on national TV that'll give you all the most coverage. Is if he's speaking about the New York Knicks. That's so crazy. But yeah, for me, I don't really have much other than like Hoop said about Kawhi. Kawhi is the Clippers don't look bad, man, without him. I mean, they could be better, of course.
They have an identity defensively.
They have an identity.
Exactly. Identity, yep.
James
this guy said, I'm sorry, this guy said the fact that PG gets more slander than Kawhi is blasphemy to me. Kawhi, when he is on the court, is Kawhi Leonard. I think it's merely the fact that he has degenerative knees. Like I think if Kawhi's not playing, he can't play. PG, you don't know what PG you're getting.
Dude, that's the thing. I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
I agree with that point because I thought that too. But you got to think about it like Paul. How many times has Paul George shit the bed when healthy in the postseason?
That's what I'm saying.
How many times has he done it? Now how many times can you contextualize that and say, he was hurt? Like I've seen Paul George completely go missing while being 100% healthy. I've seen Kawhi Leonard through 2 games average 37 a game until he got hurt. Like it's different. It's really different. And the Clippers, to Hoop's point, the Clippers literally looks like a different team with Kawhi on the court as opposed to with just Paul George, as opposed to just with Paul George, James Harden, and Russ, as opposed to just with Paul George and James. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's different. But to what I was about to say about Kawhi is, how much more time does Kawhi Leonard get? How much more? Because I feel like NBA fans are starting to turn on him. Look, when Stephen A. Smith said that Kawhi should retire, everybody laughed at Stephen A. Smith. 2 years later, everybody's looking at Stephen A. Smith and not giving him credit for being the first to say it. It's insane. But when he said it back then, y'all should have listened to him then because
Didn't you also call him the
made
worst
sense.
superstar in
He
sport
did.
history?
He did,
Yes, he
which
did.
I ain't say Stephen A. right about everything, but he did say that. He did say that. So it's different. I don't know. That's definitely Joel Embiid. Definitely Joel Embiid. Kawhi has the most complicated legacy out of an all-time great, maybe. You could say that. Like, but worst superstar? Nah. Because when he's there, he performs. It's that simple. Defense is taking a hit over the years, of course, but offensively, if Kawhi's knees are intact, he can virtually get any bucket that he wants. It's actually insane watching the growth of him at the end of his San Antonio tenure to now and seeing how we haven't really been like in the last 3 years, he's probably missed like plus 250 games total. Plus 250, the most out of anybody he's missed definitely in the last 5 years, more than Anthony Davis, right? More than LaMelo Ball, more than anybody that you think is injury prone. Kawhi is the most, more than Joel Embiid. Kawhi is the most injury prone player in basketball. There's no other way that you can really look at it. That's the one thing that I can definitely say, yeah, that's true. But
is there anything? I guess the question, because I know he's still going in the comments, just fluky legacy and all. Is there any part of that you could pin on Kawhi, or is it merely circumstance?
Availability matters, and he just hasn't been there. I mean, I'm not going to say that should impact how good of a basketball player Kawhi Leonard is, but the availability in terms of what that means for the roster and how you can feel a competitive roster around Kawhi should be brought up in those types of conversations with the proper context. I think that does matter.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of like load management proved to not work. Like it had its one shining moment or couple of shining moments with the Spurs and the Raptors that one year, but outside of that, it has not worked. It really has not worked. So for me, when I look at Kawhi Leonard and in his case for his legacy, like he can say he has 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, defensive player of the year hardware, like all NBA selections and a few all-star appearances, and less points all time than DeMar DeRozan. But it is what it is. We know what Kawhi, we know that no matter that in 20 years' time, if you showing your grandkids box score Kawhi, they're not going to really understand it. Hell, they might not even understand if you showed them his 2019 playoff run just simply from a box score. Like that's how we're going to have to explain Kawhi. The same way that we have to explain Tim Duncan, right? All time, when you look at his box score numbers compared to other all-time great bigs, but then you look a little bit deeper and you really understand the impact that he had. 2 different scenarios because one, like Gifted said, showed you that he could be available consistently for 20 years. And the other one showed you, hey, when he is here, he's top 5, but he ain't here all the time. That's the problem. I think that a lot of people got too comfortable. Kawhi probably got too comfortable in load management to think that people were just going to look at it and be like, oh, when he shows up, he's great, so we're just going to let it slide. Nah, bro, because if they were going to call Anthony Davis street clothes, right, and I'm a Derrick Rose fan, so hearing the Derrick Rose injury memes still are in my head in rotation, right? So I remember how it was at that time for him. And then to see guys like Anthony Davis go through it later, right? And to see guys like Kawhi Leonard kind of skate by until people started to look and say, well, damn, you know what? Anthony Davis has played more games than you in the last 2 seasons. So we can't call him street clothes. We looking at you, Kawhi. Where you been at? You're going to play on Team USA and not get healthy, and then you're going to get removed from Team USA and still not be able to be available on opening night.
A lot going on. Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like that's how I viewed it. And I love Kawhi Leonard, one of my favorite players to watch from this generation. But I've always been that type of NBA fan where I'm like, shit's got to be consistent. I admit I was calling Anthony Davis street clothes, but once I saw him actually start coming back and being there for the Lakers through postseason failures, like at least for him to be able to say he was there when they lost, I was like, yeah, shit, I got nothing to say to Anthony Davis. He's there. He's healthy. He has a nick on his knee. He gets back up and he's brushing it off. Kawhi can't say the same thing, unfortunately. And who you remember when we did I think it was like when we were doing the podcast it was right before the start of the season. We did a top 10 list. This was like 2 seasons ago, but we did a top 10 list. And me, you, and Saney were going back and forth over where Kawhi should be put going into the season, not knowing right? Not knowing
I think I had him.
was going to
I
play.
definitely had him in the top 10, top 5.
I
maybe.
definitely had him somewhere in that top 10 as well. I don't think I had him top 5, but I definitely had him in that top 10. And I remember saying back then, like, we're going to have to get real comfortable with Kawhi Leonard being top 15 in those talks, top 20 talks.
I just don't rank him.
There you go, Gifted. That's the best way to do it.
I just don't rank him. If he's not playing, I'm not going to rank him. I think it's way too complicated, and I can't have consistent logic with him being higher or lower. So as of right now, for me personally, I just don't rank him. But I know at his best, when active, he can perform at a top 10 level. Yes.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. So hopefully we'll see him at some point this year. I don't know. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. It's gonna be a short one today. We usually go till about 7:30, but we want to give y'all time to get ready, put y'all's bets in, and get ready to watch these games. Hoopology, Gifted, ZZ have been here with you. Boys, go ahead and sign off. Tell them where to find you, socials and all that.
Better. You can find me everywhere at Gifted Hoops, on Twitter at Gifted Hoops _ I'll be watching a ton of basketball. I do live watches on playback of playback.tv/Gifted Hoops for some more basketball content. That's me.
Yes, sir.
The days of me talking seriously about hoops have come to an end, unfortunately. It was a nice refresher to do this, but if you're into comedy or any of that, Hoopology on all platforms pretty much. So this is honestly a nice refresher. It's been a while.
Yes, sir. It has been a while. And other than that, you know where to find me. I am actually going to be posting an Oklahoma City Thunder video next, just team analysis on them. But y'all know where to find me on TikTok, on Instagram. I post YouTube shorts as well, so that's a fun time. But other than that, before we get out of here, predictions on the game tonight. Who wins? Bucks and Heat, and then Lakers and Suns. Gifted, go first.
Give me the Heat tonight, and give me the Suns.
I like it.
I'll go Milwaukee and then the Lakers in triple overtime because that's what I'm trying to watch.
Okay. Word.
Okay. I got
Wrong
Miami.
game winner. Wrong game winner.
I got Miami in a close game, down to the wire game in LA, but I think I got LA pulling it out. So I'll go Miami and LA, the Bubble Boys. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We will be back. We won't be back on Thursday, actually, but you might see me in Gifted on the panel, potentially, Thursday, Friday. And then, of course, Friday, 11 a.m., the parlay video drops, and that shit is going to be immaculate production. I'm telling y'all are going to enjoy that. Other than that, this has been From the Logo. Y'all be safe. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, full force with Hayes in the building. Y'all be good, be safe, and of course, if you see Draymond on the street, stay away from him. Bye.
Peace.